completely bilingual.
Yeah, trilingual, bicultural, tricultural.
There's a problem though with me because I speak Japanese, and so my son only speaks to me in Japanese.
Oh.
My other friends, British men who are married to Japanese women, they don't speak so much Japanese, so their children actually grow up bilingual.
Oh.
Because they know, oh, to daddy I have to speak English, but to mother I can speak Japanese. So they always learn to use both. Whereas my son only ever uses Japanese, which is annoying. I'll ask him a question in English, and he'll reply in Japanese.
What nationality do you want him to acquire?
Well, as you probably know, when he's 22, he has to choose. Under Japanese law, when he's 22, he has to choose which nationality. But under British law, he is allowed to have dual nationality.
Oh, really? Oh.
So basically, all he does is, in Japan, he says, I'll be Japanese, but he keeps his British passport.
Wow.
Just in case.
Just in case.
You know, so...
Defection. Exactly.
Well, if he ever decides he wants to live in Europe...
Europe, wow.
I mean, that's the thing. These days, it's not just the UK. He can go and live anywhere in Europe. Because he's not just a UK citizen, he's a European citizen, which is a big deal now, I think.
I think there's much is to be expected about third culture kids, and they're bilingual, trilingual, bicultural, tricultural, kind of. So world is becoming more global and global. So.
Well, I think they certainly have an advantage, especially if they come from an English-speaking background. That's a huge advantage, I think. There's been a lot of talk about Chinese would be more useful than English, but I don't believe that, because you only have to look at the internet, and it's still true that 80% of the internet is in English. So if they grow up with a background in English, I think that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, huge advantage. How do you say being active in international scene? Play important or key role in international scene.
They could. They have the opportunity to do that. It's not a given. You can't say that all bilingual or multicultural kids will be players in the global scene, but they certainly have that door open if they choose to go through it. I have no idea what Jake wants to do in the future. I mean, he gives the usual, I want to be a pro basketball player or a pro baseball player or pro tennis player. Okay. That's all right at the moment, but sooner or later reality will hit. It's I envy him, I really do, because I personally, although my parents were slightly unusual in that they did speak other languages around the house, so even before I learned languages at school, I had a little bit of French and a bit of German. They never really made a point of pushing us out into the world. So I was actually 22 years old when I first left England. Left the UK, I should say. Other parts of the UK. But that's one of the reasons I decided to go. I had never been outside of the UK. And I decided
you have
to travel.
So you have a good chemistry with Japan or Japanese people? Or just the person you fell in love happens to be a Japanese lady.
No, I like a lot of children of my age, when in the 1970s Bruce Lee and Kung Fu started getting popular, a lot of people became more interested in the Orient, and I was one of them. But I quickly decided, I liked Kung Fu and I liked Chinese food, but I wasn't that particularly interested in Chinese culture. I very, very quickly decided I liked Japanese, especially Zen culture.
Zen, wow, Zen.
I love that wabi-sabi simplicity.
Wabi-sabi. Elegant simplicity, or according to the dictionary, plain living and high thinking. Genius, according to Genius dictionary.
Well, it kind of annoys me, the number of Japanese people who have told me, "Oh, you foreigners, you don't understand wabi-sabi." I think I probably do better than most Japanese nowadays. But when I was 12 years old, I was reading books, piles and piles of books on Zen and temples and garden design. So I always wanted to come to Japan. It actually took me 4 years.
4 years.
I left England when I was 22. And my plan was to go to the end of Europe, which at that time was Greece.
Greece.
And I was planning to work my way back through Europe for 2 years, go back to the UK, get a job, settle down, become a normal office worker or something. That was the plan. But in fact, I went to Greece, worked in Greece for 3 months, and the next thing I did was to go to Australia.
Australia.
Which was a bit surprising for my mother.
So the idea of your trip abroad is not just making a man out of yourself.
The only real reason to go was
out of curiosity.
Curiosity, certainly. What is out there, I didn't know. I was supremely ignorant of the world. Unbelievably. For example, I decided to go from Greece to Australia, and I didn't know anything about Australia, really. I knew it was vaguely British, but I got to Singapore, and I decided, okay, I want to buy a ticket to Australia. Now, everybody goes to Sydney.
Sydney.
I didn't really know Sydney, whatever, so I said, okay, where's the cheapest place to get to? That was Perth.
Perth.
So I bought a ticket to Perth. Now, Perth is a long way from anything else. I didn't realise just how big Australia was. Coming from the UK, which is a very small landmass, you have really no idea how big a place like Australia is.
Australia is big, landmass. Japan is not land. Japan is archipelago. Is a proper
archipelago. Yeah. Well, I was so ignorant. It was surprising I didn't get into trouble, really.
Are you a typical British person?
I don't think anybody you meet in Japan is a typical British person.
Typical.
I think it's basically true to say any person who is living outside of their own country is per se not typical.
Not typical.
It would be ridiculous for me to say, yeah, I'm a typical Englishman, because obviously I'm not. I've spent half of my life now living in Japan, so that makes me atypical, definitely.
Interesting.
Are you a typical Japanese man?
I don't know. Ordinary. No, not typical. Ordinary. Not
really? No, because the average Japanese man doesn't speak good English, so you've got that is completely different.
Some Canadians said to me that, Shinji, are you a Westerner? No.
So then maybe your way of thinking as well is...
Yeah. So language affects one's way of thinking. to really affect the way of thinking.
Which is cause, which is effect there though? Is it, does learning a language affect your thinking, or is it you want to learn a language because your thinking is different anyway?
I don't know. But vice versa.
Yeah, I don't know about you, I'm getting hot.
Oh yeah, yeah. Then I need some tissue paper.
You got some?
Oh, I forgot to. I found tissue. 話せれぶ。話せ。ネピア話せる。Oh, thank you. Thank you. No celeb. Interesting.
No celeb?
話せれぶ。
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know. Copywriter.
There are some really strange messages on those sort of things in Japan.
Mm.
Yeah, well, that's better. It's cooler then.
終わらない。